Hi.
Hi.
Ready to make challah?
I am so ready to make challah.
Okay, good.
What do I do first?
Well, first you need to know that baking challah is not only a science, it's an art.
I love art.
And that's why I wanted this to be a video, because when people ask me for my recipe, a lot of times I have to say, well, it looks like or it feels like. So you'll get to see hands-on what it looks like and what it feels like, and I'm a visual learner.
Okay.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to proof our yeast or create a sponge.
Okay.
There are two types of yeasts. There is active dry yeast, and then there's a rapid rise yeast. So what happens with these is this one takes a little longer to develop.
Okay.
So you're going to get a better flavor profile, and you're going to get a tighter texture. Your bubbles will be a little more uniform because the yeast in here tends to be a little more uniform in size. If you don't have time, rapid rise works beautifully. It's designed to sponge quickly.
Okay. So what's the time difference between the active dry and quick rise?
This, you'll see a good sponge develop in between 3 to 5 minutes. Okay. This is mostly 5 to 8, sometimes 10 minutes. Here's the art/science form. It really depends on the amount of humidity that's in the air. And what also can affect your yeast is the amount of yeast or bacteria that's in your own air. So bakeries are going to get a more rapid response because there's already that yeast inside the air.
But it's not a big time difference between the two.
Not a huge time difference, no. So this water is warm to the touch. 105 to 110 degrees.
Okay.
When you're measuring liquids, you should always use a liquid measuring device, not a dry goods measuring device. The weight is different.
Okay.
And it's a little more precise here. So what you're going to start with is a half a cup of warm water.
Okay.
And I'm going to proof both of them. All right. And you want to keep this on hand because you may need it later.
Okay.
The next thing you're going to do is you're going to add a little sugar because you want the yeast to feed on something.
Right.
So making white bread, the only thing you need, or wheat bread actually, is water, yeast, and flour. Okay. Because flour has, I guess, some sugars in it that the yeast feeds off of. Okay. But challah, it doesn't need any extra. It creates those carbohydrates, those sugars. But because challah is special, because it's Shabbat, we're going to elevate our bread. Okay. And how do we do that? We do it with these two ingredients, honey and egg. So I have different types of honey here. And the type of honey that you use will flavor your bread. Okay. This is a basic clover honey. I'll use a wildflower if I really want something a little special. So I pour in about a teaspoon or 2.
So it's not so important to measure?
Yeah, not so much. Okay. You don't want too much sugar because then your yeast is going to go crazy and do a lot of feeding, and then you're going to get an overdeveloped dough, which is not good because then it doesn't hold the structure that you want.
Overdeveloped meaning that it is puffier or?
A lot of air bubbles. Okay. That means that the yeast went crazy eating the sugar, and it's just growing and growing. And then when you deflate it and try to shape it, it doesn't hold its shape as well.
Because it'll keep puffing up.
And if it eats all the sugar, your bread comes out more blonde. Because what also happens in the baking process is the sugar is what browns the bread. Okay. It gives it that golden color. So, a package of dry yeast, whether it's rapid rise or dry, always comes with 2 1/4 teaspoons. That's what's inside of here, 2 1/4 teaspoons.
And you use the whole thing?
You put the whole thing in. Okay. So this one is our rapid rise, the quick rise. Okay. You'll put that right there.
Do you need to stir it or anything?
Nope, you should stir it, but I'm going to measure this one out. So, 2 1/4 cups. Okay. Both active dry and rapid rise come in packets. Both rapid rise and active come in jars. I typically buy the jars because I do a lot of this kind of baking. Now you're going to whisk.
Okay.
All right?
So it's not just stirring, it's you just whisk.
Well, you're trying to dissolve the yeast in this warm water. That's what you're doing here.
Okay.
So now we're going to put our dry ingredients together.
Okay.
Flour is very important. I'm a snob about this. I only use King Arthur's flour.
All right.
This has 12.7% protein. Regular flour in King Arthur has 11.7 or 11.3. I don't remember off the top of my head. But different flours have different protein counts. The reason you want a higher protein count in your bread is because it's going to create stronger strands of gluten.
Okay.
And you need stronger strands because you're going to be kneading it and you're going to be shaping it. So it has to hold up to that kind of strength. Cake flour, pastry flour, you're not working it so hard. It's a little more delicate, so it can handle a lower protein count.
But for how it's important to use high protein count bread flour. Now, are you receiving any money for promoting King Arthur's flour? Or
I am not.
Is the temple going to receive any money?
I wish you could, but you're not.
All right. We'll work on it.
We'll work on it. We know people at King Arthur's.
Okay.
All right, so we are going to measure out 3 cups of flour,
Okay.
2 tablespoons of sugar,
Okay.
and a teaspoon of salt.
All
We're
right.
going to do this over here.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to use something called dip and sweep.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to dip this in here, sweep it.
Okay, swipe it means that you're shaking it.
Dip and sweep, and then I'm just getting a cup.
Okay.
We're using a food processor. This is called a food processor. I have a Breville. This is the dough hook. The dough hook is not the steel blade, but it's plastic.
Okay.
All right. Cuisinart makes one. They have a dough hook. I don't know about KitchenAid. I think they do. Like I said, mine is a Breville. So we need 3 cups. So that was 1. Again, there's 2. Dip and sweep. That's all I'm doing, dipping and sweeping. I'm not pounding it in there. This is a little less and a little more. Try and get it as level as possible. Okay. You can always add more flour.
Okay.
All right, so this is the part where it's part science. So now we have 2 tablespoons. 1/8 of a cup is 2 tablespoons. So I have 2 tablespoons of sugar.
1/8 of a cup is 2 tablespoons.
Yes,
Okay.
1/8 of a cup is 2 tablespoons. I just happen to have that there.
Okay.
This is a teaspoon. You need a teaspoon of salt. Salt plays a very important role in the development of bread.
Okay.
So, I would never do that. Don't ever do what I just did.
What did you
do? Not pour your salt over your dough, because if you get too much, you get salty bread. Pour it over something else. No. Do not do that. Pour it over here. Okay. So, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend it. This is called blending and or aerating. Aerating means I'm putting air into.
Okay. Should we be worried about our yeast?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. So here I'm going to hit my start.
Okay.
30 seconds. That's all you need is 30
and
seconds.
You have a timer right here.
I have a timer. Again, I've been doing it so long, I think by just.
Okay.
Okay.
But for somebody just kind of starting out, sometimes out of time there, sometimes you can set a timer or look at your watch.
All right, so 30 seconds. Done.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to move over here.
Okay.
And here are our yeast. As you can see, this one is larger and foamier.
It's the quick, that was the quick
This
rise.
is your rapid rise. This one's still developing.
Okay.
Which do you want to put in your bread today?
Well, this one looks nicer. I would use that one.
Okay.
That's the quick rise.
This is quick rise.
And this is what it should look like, right?
This is what we call a sponge.
Okay, the sponge is like, but is the top half the sponge, it looks like?
It's called creating a sponge. The whole thing is a
The
sponge.
whole thing is a sponge.
What you know is the yeast is dissolved and the yeast is active.
Okay.
If you don't see this happening, either one of two things has happened. A, your yeast is just inactive. Or B, your water was too hot.
Okay.
You can kill your yeast with if your water's too hot. All right? So we know this is well fed. So we're going to come back over here. I've got a little spatula because I'm going to scrape out all the good stuff. I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to pour this in around the dry ingredients.
Okay.
I'm going to scrape everything out. All right? Now, I have here, the next ingredients you need are eggs. All right? We buy brown eggs. That's what we have. These are room temperature. Eggs are room temperature. You've got that nice warm yeast. It's been sitting in here. If you put cold eggs in that, it's just going to seize things up. So having things at room temperature, especially when you're baking, is important. I'm going to crack the egg over here because I don't want shells in my challah. And this way, a smaller vessel, I'm able to fish them out more easily. Oh, double yellow challah. This is what's going to give your challah a little richer flavor and the color.
Okay.
Now, it calls for 1/3 of a cup of oil. And a vegetable oil, canola, whatever kind of oil you have. I use safflower. Safflower is lighter in texture, lighter, and really has no flavor, so it's not going to alter the flavor of your challah. If you don't have safflower, I highly recommend canola. Vegetable oil is kind of heavy. It has flavor to it, so does corn oil. So either canola or a safflower. It's pricey, but it's worth it. All right, so I'm going to measure out 1/3 cup of oil. And what I typically do is I'll add my eggs into this as well.
Okay.
I find I'm getting the rest of the yeast that's still sort of embedded in there. This gives me a chance to break up the yolks, blend this up just a little better.
But you're not using the whisk again?
No, I'm just breaking up the yolks and mixing in the oil so it's a little more incorporated.
Okay.
All right? So we don't need that. Now we're going to come up here and we're going to pour it in again around so it's pretty evenly distributed. Put the lid on. 3 minutes is what you need. Now, it takes a while to develop. It takes a while for me to know if I need more water or more flour. If it's super moist outside, I may need to add more flour. The air quality will affect your challah. Again, art and science. Okay? This is blending pretty well. It's been a minute. It's kind of crumbling. It's coming together. I'm watching it, and right now, I don't think I need to add anything. It's not wet, and it's not dry. I spilled milk this morning, and the dog is digging at the tree, and it's making scream. Cathy's 2 years old, so she can't hear. It's back to the pot. So, if this were too wet, it would cling to the bowl and look real sticky, and I would add flour. If it was too dry, it would be very crumbly, like pea-sized bits, and I would need to add more butter. When I talk about adding, what I'm talking about is a teaspoon here or a teaspoon there. Tablespoon max. You don't want to add too much because you want to be able to stay on top of it and be able to correct your mistakes quickly. And again, it's all proportionate. So this has been 2.5 minutes. The machine is doing the kneading. Again, the high protein flour allows this gluten to build under these conditions.
Yep.
This is their perfect blend. Whatever amount of flour we're in, whatever amount of liquid's in, this is exactly what you're looking for. Exactly. It's been 3 minutes. Turn this off. You can feel it. Just, it's spongy. It's soft.
Yeah.
It's smooth. It's elastic. When I pull it, you can feel it bouncing back. This is what you want. All right? So let's take this over here, and I'm going to show you how to knead. Because if we did this by hand, you would need to knead. So kneading means you've got the ball of dough, push it back, bring it forward, creating a little bit of an envelope here, push it, turn it a quarter turn, fold it over, push it forward, roll it back.
Okay.
Again, quarter turn, and you can see it creates this little bit of a flat. Fold it, push, fold it, push, bring it back, fold it, push. Okay?
Okay.
So when you're done, this is what it should look like. A nice, smooth ball. Now it needs a nice place to rest, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to take, again, some canola oil, just a teeny bit.
So you're taking a paper towel and you're
I'm
coating
spreading
the inside of the bowl with just a little bit of
just a
canola
little
oil.
bit, less than a teaspoon. Flop this in, roll it around. The reason I'm rolling it around, so it's rolled around, it's covered.
Yeah.
You want the grease or the oil to cover the whole bowl of challah.
Yeah, we did backwards.
Oh, yeah. We've rolled it around. You want some oil on top because you don't want it to stick to your plastic wrap. You want to seal in. What the plastic wrap does is seal in the gases.
Okay.
That's what you're doing here. You want
the dough is going to rise in there?
yes, it will. So, just like, and then you cover it. All right? You want to put it in someplace warm. Our oven happens to have a device where you can proof, and it brings the temperature up and it keeps it at a constant 100 degrees. That's a little too warm. So typically what I'll do is while I'm doing all this prep work, I'll set the temperature to 100 degrees, let it get to that, shut it off, crack the door a little, and then put the dough in to rise. Ta-da!
Ta-da, there it is.
It has been an hour and a half.
Wow.
That's about how long it takes for a quick rise.
Okay.
Takes about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Again, art and science for the active yeast. So here we have your dough. This has been covered in plastic wrap. The gases were sealed. You can see it's nice and spongy. You deflate it. Go ahead and poke it. Give it a couple of pokes. See, you're letting out all those gases, all that air.
Okay.
All right. Now, if your dough is really sticky, you might need to have a floured surface. Now, I'm going to divide this dough in half and show you how to do 2 different braids. All right?
Okay.
Go ahead and feel that. How does it feel? Nice.
Nice, yeah.
Elastic.
Yeah, very elastic.
Okay.
Not sticky.
No, it's not sticky at all. How about that? Okay, so we'll do a 3 braid first.
Okay.
I use air bake cooking sheets. I like them because when you cook on like flat sheets or the Teflon ones, the coated ones, the crust tends to cook and bake faster than the interior. This provides a better indirect heat source to the bottom of the crust.
So it's
I love
more uniform baking.
I love air bake. I also typically don't grease it because I don't like having to clean it, but that's not environmentally responsible. I'm sorry. You can do both, but I use parchment paper, put it on the sheet. So now we'll do a 3 braid.
Okay.
You want to roll this out, and we're going to divide this into 3 equal weights.
Okay.
I'm just pinching it. Another useful tool in the kitchen is called a bench scraper. Cuts it nice and evenly. So you kind of feel it. They're about even. This one's a little heavier possibly. But anyways, you want 3 even balls. Okay, roll them out like Play-Doh. Make a snake. That's what you're going to do. And you can also, when you're rolling it, you can feel some of the air bubbles and see them. All right? You want this to be about 10 inches long. Okay? And you want it to be even.
I'm not very good at this.
Well, it takes practice. Remember, I've been doing this since 1987. My friend Julie Pentelnick developed this recipe, and she's a phenomenal baker as well as a phenomenal Judaic artist. So she taught me how to do this. Right. So here's a strand. I made it a little smaller on the ends, a little thinner on the ends, because when I braid it, we have to tie it off. All right. And you'll find it snaps back because it's very elastic. All right. So I'm rolling and I'm pulling using 2 hands, using my palms. All right. Is yours there? Essentially. Almost. All right. Now, I'm going to pinch these thin ends together.
Okay.
And just a simple 3 braid, okay? Over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. Okay, simple, just simple, right?
Right.
All right. Pinch it off at the ends. The beauty of pinching it off at the ends, I found, is I can make little hollow buns. Kind of eat them a little before, but I'm pinching and rolling, and I'm going to tuck that tail into the braid, just like that. It's tucked inside. I'm going to pinch, pull, meld them together, just like this. Take the tail.
Yep. And tuck it.
And tuck it in. All right? It's tucked in. Give it a little roll, and here's your braid.
Beautiful. And then, so the ends that you tucked in, they
On
wind
the
up on
bottom.
the bottom.
Yes.
Okay, great.
All right, so that's the 3 braid. Now we'll do a 4 braid. Same thing. Roll out your dough so it's relatively uniform and even. An even log here.
So for a 4 braid, my guess is you're going to do 4 weights.
I'm going to do 4 different weights, yes.
Ah.
So I will cut this one in half.
Uh-huh.
Cut it in half again. Cut it in half again. Now these are not even at all, so I'll take one and kind of distribute it where I need it. And I just use my hand to sort of feel what's even. So same process. Roll it out. Start with, use your palms. Not so much your fingers, you're going to use your palms. All right? Keep rolling. Same thing. Make it pretty uniform, except leave some thinner ends. All right? Now these can be a little thinner because we're using 4. All right. All right, there you go. There's one.
Here, you might as well correct this one.
All right, you start, I'll finish. How about that?
That's a much
I'm not crazy about the way this one looks at the end, but there we go. I'm not a professional bread maker, so it's not like you're going to go to a bakery and everything's going to look perfect. I do guarantee it tastes good. I will guarantee that. Okay, so there's 2.
Here.
Okay, and roll out number 3. I can still feel some of those little air pockets. That's what we're doing here. We're getting rid of those. Okay. Just distribute this a little better. Okay.
Here you go.
All right, ready?
No. It seems to be Cathy corrected.
Cathy, I have to touch my nose.
So you need to wash your
I
hands.
have to wash my hands, otherwise that's disgusting. All right. All right, so here we go, a little bit more. Roll here. Okay, so here's a 4 braid. You can find all this stuff on YouTube. You can do 4 braid, 5 braid, 6 braid,
Or just a simple 3 braid.
or simple 3 braid. All right, so I'm pinching all 4 ends together, and I'm going to start from the left. I'm going to go under 2, over 1. Okay? So number 1 goes under 2 and 3, and then 1 goes over 3. Number 4 goes under the 2 in the middle, and it goes over. So it's always under 2, over 1. 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 And repeat. Under 2, over 1. Now this is usually where I never end up with the same amount. So I will pinch off the end, roll this out, rolling it out. Just make a simple knot. There's like a pre-Shabbat little treat. Pinch these again, pinch them tight, pinch this tight, pinching, and again, tucking into the braid. I think when you braid these tighter, it maintains its shape better. This is a very tight. I kind of roll this around a little.
Beautiful.
So those are the 2 different shapes. Now, ideally, what I've done is I'll set my oven to 325, and while it's preheating, these rest.
Now
They
this
have to
says
rest.
375.
375, what did I say?
You said 325.
I'm sorry, 375.
Okay.
Preheat your oven to 375. Cover these, let them rest.
Okay.
They need to rest. You've been working them, they've been expanding, contracting because they're very elastic. You need something, you don't need it, it looks better.
So how long would you make those rest?
Our oven takes about 25 minutes to heat up and get to that temperature and stay there. So about 25 minutes. You should let them rest. Go ahead and do your cleanup, whatever. We're going to make what's called an egg wash. Okay, so again, pop it in. Make sure you don't have shells in it. To sort of break up the protein inside here, you can either add milk or water. It's called an egg wash. Okay?
How much water did you add?
2 teaspoons at the most. You don't need to add a lot. All you're doing is breaking up the protein and making this lighter so it glazes the challah. What this is going to do is give it the sheen
Okay.
that you see, that glossy sheen. You want to mix it up well. You don't want to like scramble because the egg will bake if you're not careful. So, making sure it's all well blended. You can use your fingers. You can use a pastry brush, however you want. I don't usually use all of this, so I'll put it into a small container and then use it as a scrambled egg the next morning or something like that.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're just throwing it out, which that's kind of wasteful. Okay, so it's rested for 45 minutes. Then you can see they're a little bigger.
Okay.
Now you're going to eggwash
All
them.
right. You can use a brush.
There are two different kinds of brushes. This is a natural bristle brush. I don't like to use it because it can leave bristles on my bread. You have to pick that up. This is a silicone bristle brush. And I'm just going to paint the hollow.
Okay.
Just like you would paint anything. Just make sure you cover it all. Don't leave too many big drippy pools. Alright, let you, I'm going to do a
Too
little
many
fun.
dirty pools.
Yeah.
Solid.
On the hollow. If it's on the baking sheet, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay. Good painting. Awesome.
Okay.
Get the sides. All right.
Okay, that's good.
Yep, looks good.
Okay.
We're going to pop it in the oven. This has a lip. I like to pop it in the oven with the lip facing out. I put it in the middle rack. Don't shove it all the way back. The back does heat, cooks faster typically than the front because heat can escape out the front. Close it gently. I put a timer on. I do 30 minutes, but sometimes it takes 35. So I check it. All right, so our timer just went off.
All right.
I'm not going to pull it out of the oven until I really check it first, okay?
All right.
So I'm looking at it.
Ooh.
It has a nice golden brown
Yeah.
crust on top. Now, if you happen to have a food thermometer, when you insert the thermometer into the middle of the bread, it should come out and read 165. 165 degrees means the bread is done cooking.
It's reading 132, 34. That's moving.
All right, so that's what it should read. About 100, it should read 165.
It's not.
Right.
It's like just at 138.
All right. So what I would do, take it out, pop it back in for 5 more minutes. Another way you can sort of tell, people talk about thumping and if something sounds hollow. This one's thinner, it's going to cook faster than this one. That's why this is probably going to need 5 more minutes. So we're just going to take this one out. It's going to be hot. Out. And I'm going to put this on a cooling rack. And the type of cooling rack that I like is one that has feet on the bottom. Because what will happen is, if you keep it on the sheet, it'll keep cooking because the sheet is still hot. Or if you put it on a flat surface, you're going to create condensation and you're going to get a wet, soggy bottom.
Ooh.
So, always check your hollow before you pull it out. You don't want to stop the baking process. So you set the timer for another 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, we'll pull it out. It should be done. You don't want to overbake it because it'll be very dry. Okay?
All right. Thank you for that challah baking lesson, Cathy.
You're welcome, dear. Now,
Does this mean I have to make extra lots of challah?
it means if ever I can't, you can.
I'll look at the video.
Or ever, if you ever want, you can.
Okay.
Okay?